for Smart Investing for the Young Innovators category. This will be presented by Jonathan Sieber, an AID board member and associate with UpData Partners. Jonathan?
Good evening, everyone. I'm very pleased to present this award to Matthew Martin tonight because I, in my day job, am a venture capitalist, and as someone who deploys other people's money, I know that we are often judged as much for the investments that we do make as the ones we don't make. Matthew tonight is being recognized because he convinced people not to make an investment. He is the former president of Bowdoin College chapter of Americans for Informed Democracy, and he is intimately familiar with the organization's mission to foster knowledgeable engagement on America's role in the world. He really is the personification of that mission, in my opinion. Because Matt grew up in Albany, New York, and went to Bowdoin with the express purpose of becoming an engaged young leader. At Bowdoin, Matt chose to major in government and religion in the hopes of understanding how these two mega forces sometimes interact, sometimes conflict, sometimes complement, and very often, almost always, influence each other in this broad world of ours. And it's at the intersection of government and religion that we see one example of Matt's penchant for engagement and knowledge-seeking firsthand. After the devastation of the Indian Ocean tsunami, Matt traveled to Sri Lanka to study the impact on rural farmers from economic assistance provided by faith-based groups, so that he could understand how people of one religion were influenced by receiving aid from others. This is a large undertaking for an NGO or a government, of course, and a massive and very committed step for a young student from upstate New York. So we're here tonight, as I said, to honor Matt for successfully leading an effort to raise awareness at his university for the tragedy in Darfur. Knowing that large sums of money often attract attention, he and 12 of his colleagues banded together as the Darfur Coalition and organized a series of events along with the Genocide Intervention Fund to help convince Bowdoin to commit to banning direct investment in any company that might profit from the tragedy. Though Matt will tell you that any one endowment and any one person might have a very relatively small and symbolic effect on such a big tragedy, I can personally tell you that that's not the case. As someone who spent 3 years manning the no-fly zones in southern Iraq to defend one group from genocide by another, I can tell you that every little bit helps. And I'm very pleased to present a young man with very real and concrete leadership capabilities, the worthy recognition that he's receiving tonight. Congratulations, Matthew Martin, this year's Young Innovator in Smart Investing.
First, Brett McAvoy for getting me involved first in AID up at Bowdoin's campus. I'd also like to thank Seth and the rest of AID for the opportunity to meet so many other people who have interesting ideas about social responsibility, being innovative. I asked Seth, what I'm supposed to speak about up here, and he said I was supposed to inspire everyone. I'm not quite sure I'm going to be able to do that. Maybe that's a little preaching in the choir. You probably are all inspired enough that you're here. And like Radia, I don't think of myself so much as a social innovator. I think my friends would tell you that I'm more of a socially awkward innovator. That being said, I'd like to share just a few of my reflections, my thoughts, trends that I see from my generation. A lot of the others who are up here have referenced our generation. So, from my experience working on genocide prevention, I think that our generation, in many aspects, in socially responsible ventures, have demonstrated that they've been both more practical and consensus-oriented than previous generations. And just to use my experience to try to illustrate that briefly. When I first got involved with a group called Genocide Intervention Fund, which is now known as Genocide Intervention Network, a lot of folks who had been active on this sort of issue in the past had had really focused on efforts such as petitions or sit-ins or rallies in DC. And I was lucky enough to get connected with a group that tried to take a fresh approach to this issue. Genocide Intervention Fund started out as a group trying to raise money to essentially privately finance peacekeeping troops to provide direct protection on the ground, rather than relying on humanitarian aid. They said, before you can deliver this aid, you really need to protect the very people that you're delivering it to. So I think that our generation has demonstrated this practicality and looking for new ways to approach this issue. I think that divestment is another way. In the past, divestment has been successful in social justice issues, for instance, in South Africa. I really think that divestment is sort of, again, thinking out of the traditional means for impacting our world and really sort of departs from the traditional social justice movement that my parents grew up in. Another way that I think that we have demonstrated a lot of practicality is that students are beginning to no longer just preach to themselves. In the past, I understand, at least from my parents' experience, that students would stage sit-ins and they would all work each other into a tizzy about social justice issues, which is great. They were passionate about it. I think what students in my generation have been able to do is take that passion and share it with people in their community outside of their campus. Students are usually written off by politicians as flaky and not politically motivated to vote or politically powerful. And so the real impact that I see students having is not convincing each other about these social justice movements, but really going out into their communities and speaking at their local places of worship, and speaking at Elks clubs and VFWs and places like that. And I've been really proud to be involved in this new sort of model for student activism. The second point that I'd like to make briefly is that I think that students in our generation have been much more consensus-oriented. I think, at least from my own experience, we started a Darfur coalition on campus. And in the past, there were a number of different groups that had been established on campus. There was Amnesty International, Students for Peace, Social Democrats. And my role was essentially convincing them to go talk to the college Republicans. And you can imagine the surprise on their face that I would have the chutzpah to suggest that they needed to go talk to the college Republicans about an issue like this. They are completely opposed to their entire agenda. They informed me, and we will never work with them. They're pigs, they're fascists. But I think that what we're starting to see more now is an interest in bringing people together on these issues that really matter, on energy security and our environment, and issues that bring people together across the spectrum, like genocide prevention. I think another place in my experience where I've encountered this is when I first came to work for Genocide Intervention Network. The Darfur movement was mostly, at least Genocide Intervention Network was working mostly among student groups. There's students taking action now for Darfur, and primarily Jewish organizations. What I worked to do with GINet was help them reach out to conservative leaders. Congress was still in the hands of conservatives back then, and also evangelicals, who in their own right had been very active, but had not really been coordinating with this other branch of the genocide prevention movement. And so I think that we've identified these major issues that bring people together across different categories, and I think that we really need to start working together and find places of common ground and consensus with these groups. And lastly, I'd like to give a plug to the organization I used to work for, Genocide Intervention Network. Genocide Intervention Network, in a very innovative way, identified that in order to have a sustainable way of preventing genocide in the future, we couldn't just work to stop the genocide in Darfur. We need to work to establish a permanent political constituency. And not just in Washington, D.C., and in Boston, and New York, and San Francisco, but in Iowa, and in Indiana, and in Arkansas. And so I imagine many of you are interested in preventing genocide, and so I highly recommend going up to, their website is genocideintervention.net, and joining the movement to try to establish a permanent political constituency so that it's not 3 or 4 years out next time that we begin to act. Next time it's right away. So thanks very much.